We are good to go. Yes.
Call meeting to order. Start with roll calls.
Jason Wertz, Tiffany Yance is absent tonight, Tony Bevel, Doreen Lible, Lisa Patterson, Richard Amici, Larry O'Shea. Jason Bernard, Tiffany Yance is absent tonight, Tony Bevel, Doreen Lible, Lisa Patterson, Richard Amici, Larry O'Shea. Jason Tiffany Yance is absent tonight, Tony Bevel, sorry, everybody, it's a pattern.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of minutes. Does anybody have any actions or comments on the minutes?
For a second.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry. It's good.
mumbling again.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right. So first up is citizen comment. So you can come up and. How's the thing?
Let's
Good evening, everybody. I'm Buzz Wright, the resident here for the last 20 years on Brookman. I've talked with Dan a number of times, and I've talked with Sergeant Christensen. So I had a concern over the development, which is explosive, and the traffic on it. I found out as a layperson, it's really not our PD to manage, it's the county. And the county, when you even try to find out about this information, you're probably advised to call the non-emergency line right here. Only as a layperson, it's in Hillsborough. And they don't know anything about Sherwood. They actually guided me on the 26th of last month to the second floor in the library, which was, as you all know, and I now know, it's a courthouse. It had nothing to do with the traffic safety. So they guided me towards Angie, and I'm here. So that's a little background. My concern is putting common sense into it. We've got 3 speed limits, 3 recognized speed limits on Brookman, which is barely 2 miles long. So how does our PD know when a person is in the correct zone? If you're heading west off of Lad Hill on Brookman, the minute you make a turn, there is a sign there for 25 miles an hour. But that sign is to take you to the next restrictive speed, which is almost approaching Oberst, and that's 35. So we've got a considerable gap where quite a bit of speeding is taking place. Now, I found out from engineering, I talked with Wendy out in Hillsborough, and apparently, if you're coming off of 99 Pacific Highway, the speed limit is 55. When you turn onto Brookman, you're not restricted to anything but 55 until you get to the next speed control, which is east of Middleton. And there is a 35-mile-an-hour sign. Well, there's a lack of common sense there. For once, there's an island there for the last 2 years. So you can't come off 99 at 55 and hope to make that turn. So what it's, my concern is the speed and the construction. Some of the people don't live there. We've got transitional people from Newark, Newburgh, excuse me, and they're just passing through. But most of it is the local building, and they're just not doing 25 in the 25 zone. So my recommendation was, we put up an additional sign. Now, I have noticed that engineering today has approved and put in place the rubber speed indicators. But I hope it's not solely for speed, though you could trip both wires and tell the speed. What I'm getting at is they're not strategically where the speeding is. When you come off of Lad Hill to the first sign of 25, that's the miner's house on the right. It's right there. There's no way you're going to be speeding that close. That's 300 feet. On the coming off on the eastbound of Brookman, the speed is supposed to be, you could do 55. We all can probably agree you can't do 55.
You have to try to make it a little bit quicker. You have a time limit for your.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as I've talked with Dan, we either need to enforce it or correct it. You can't go as a PD to a citizen and ask them, they don't know what the speed is. It's 55 until you pass the railway tracks. That can't be. And then it's 35 until you're east of Oberst, and then it's 25. I live on the corner. And Tim, I was at their presentation. I hope to get some digs in because talking with Dan, we need more units. We need more staff in the PD. We can't keep growing Sherwood and not have the support for the population. So anyway,
Thank you.
I thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming to.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I do really appreciate it. Not very many people come to talk to us, so.
yeah, thanks.
It's very appreciated. We do have this one on the agenda that we'll talk about in a little bit. Okay, so on to business. The first item there is an update on the committee board status. Dan?
Yeah, I can tell you it's still in process. It's at the city manager's office where they're working on that. I know that they're working on assignment for council to the team and expansion of the team itself, and or will become no longer a committee, but a board. All in process still, and that's really about the update. I think Jason, maybe you can add in, but I think they were looking at trying to make things get into motion kind of by the turn of the fiscal year. So for us, so that would be like July 1.
Yeah, I believe it's on the council agenda for 2 readings for new committee in June. But done by, just like Kevin Dan said, it's done by the end of the fiscal year.
Anybody have any questions? All right, on to new traffic safety requests. So the first one is 2025-008, the request for extra speed enforcement, a speed limit reduction to 25 miles per hour and lane striping on Brookman Road between Middleton and Lad Hill. So yeah, 008.1 requests extra speed enforcement and speed limit reduction on both lanes. The 2 requests, same topic.
So this is the one that the gentleman was just speaking of. He's correct. We've spoken about it. This roadway is interesting in that it is primarily, well, it's a county road. And Jason can speak to that. There is a piece of it that is directly in front of the new construction area for the new residential, which kind of goes from White Oak to Robin Hood Place. It's a small stretch of it that is patrolled by us, by Sherwood Police, even though it is a county road. So in that regard, we're looking at it in regards to just seeing if we had a speed issue in our section there. Chris, did you have that data yet, or is that still being acquired?
It's kind of a two-pronged approach to gathering the data. So, I utilize the new program that I think we've mentioned in past months, where can pull the GPS information from vehicles traveling. And so most recent data from that program that we're utilizing shows that the average speed in our section of Brookman in front of that White Oak neighborhood is approximately 34 miles per hour, with a max being 47 miles per hour. Now, granted, this is just speed that is obtained from vehicles with GPS, doesn't account for, maybe some other vehicles that don't have those kind of systems in place, et cetera. I also have gone out there and sat and monitored speed, and 35, 36 is about the average of what I saw just in my own patrol out in that area.
And Chris, can you clarify just for the committee, the section that you're talking about where the speed data that you just gave, what is the speed in that section? Because as the gentleman spoke to, it is correct. There is speeds on that road that show that it's 25 in certain sections, and it shows that it's 35 in other sections. But specifically for the Sherwood piece, what was the speed limit there?
Screen here or not, but basically from right here to right here at this driveway is our section of Brookman, and the posted speed there is 35. So the speed that I have observed, plus the data from the program we're using, is the speed is relatively consistent with what the posted speed is for our section of that roadway.
And can you just repeat one more time, what was the speed data saying that the speed was in that section?
Average 34, the highest 47, and then 95% was 42. But the average overall between the min and max was 34 miles per hour.
Gotcha. So obviously in regards to the speed issues for those complaints, that would show us, at least for our piece of that section, obviously anything over 35 is speeding, but there is always that balance between, what is something that we would enforce and work on in our section there. That would be showing that there is a limited amount of speed issue there. Now, to go to our citizens discussion points and discussions we've had with them, the road in of itself has challenges. And it doesn't mean that in the other sections that belong to Washington County Sheriff's Office for patrol that there isn't speed issues in those sections, but those would be things that would need to be pushed over to Washington County Sheriff's Office for them to enforce speed on those other sections if there's violations. That's it. I'll leave it to Jason to touch on just the aspects of that road and it being a county road in regards to the construction and the speed signs and whose responsibilities those are.
Yeah, I'm just appreciate the comments, by the way. I think we've got a lot of those things noted on our end, and this is again a county facility. We're finding it difficult to get written correspondence back from them, and nothing against the county. They're great. My recommendation that I think I'd like to make to the city manager, and I can discuss it with him and the public works director, is that maybe the city initiate some sort of not an independent study, but just kind of a list of changes that could be made, that we feel that could be made, send those to the county and maybe kind of get the ball rolling on that sort of thing. Versus waiting for the county to respond to us, which I've had the same runaround of call this number, call that, and then it's a full circle back to the city, so. I think that's kind of my response there about the stop sign configuration, the speeds. Overlapping speed zones, I don't think we've considered, by law, you're allowed to transition to speed zone, so how much enforceable area is left after that? Does it make sense to change it all to a 30 or different speed? So. I'd like to at least discuss the likelihood of the city kind of initiating a little bit of maybe we involve consultants, maybe we just throw them some bullet point suggestions and see what happens, but I don't want to keep just giving the answer that it's a county facility and let's wait until the road gets improved. I live nearby this location too, so I'm interested in these topics as well. I don't think I have a concrete firm answer, but that's kind of gonna be my next steps is this, discuss this with Rich and see what we can do as far as pressing the county for some interim solutions. I think. Pretty much.
So are there conversations? I mean, you said you were gonna initiate. Are there conversations or is the county planning on improving the road?
Full improvements are not funded. I mean, that's a huge project. It's got undulations, wetland impacts, but I did have a note that is a question mark. Is county looking into like an interim study? I had a note that they might be kind of looking into some of this stuff, but I didn't get a response back from them. So that's one thing I want to circle back with, city folks in the county is is the county already doing something similar to what I just described and then report back on that. But we're definitely pressing the county to get answers on this, and it's on the city manager's radar screen because we don't just want to keep sitting here saying, well, it's the county facility, because it is a little bit quirky with the stop signs and the speed, so I think it's fair to at least ask those questions.
So just to clarify, so the segments then east and west of the two driveways that you pointed are county then? And we just have that segment in between?
Yes.
And then with the development, is there is like long-term development and improvements planned for?
There are, but I mean, even that has been treated a little bit differently over time where we've done we built the improvements and now there's discussions of should we do that and keep doing that? Or should we do an in lieu fee so there's not just these together sidewalks through there, so.
There isn't like a capital improvement to do this particular roadway. And usually when development come in for land use review, that's when it triggers typically the improvements along the frontage. And that's why you see a piecemeal aspect of it as far as the improvements getting, where there's a whole block that's improved and then there isn't because it's a wetland and then
There is an improvement project in the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, but it's like pushed out to the, not aspiration, it is on the financially constrained list, but it's like it's the 20-year bucket. So it's so far out that it's like really, unfunded is the way I describe it.
Has Sherwood always owned that chunk, or is it just now because of that development, it kind of got absorbed?
Just that development, I don't think we've transferred jurisdiction of anything on Brookman.
well, Brookman itself,
The whole
the
road.
roadway
Maintenance.
is Washington County.
We're maintenance on that.
As development happens, that's when we annex the actual land.
So nothing's been annexed yet.
Pieces that have been annexed are the pieces that have been developed.
Sure.
Because in order for them to have development, urban development, they have to be within the city. But the roadway itself, none of that has been transferred to the city of Sherwood. There must be an agreement in regards
so-
to the,
What it is the county still owns the road. We just took over jurisdiction of certain sections of the road. So from a law enforcement perspective, we If I were to stop somebody for speeding in our section, I could cite them into our municipal court, or if I stop them outside of our section, I would have to cite them into the county court. So just for us, it comes down to jurisdiction line. So we have a very small section on Brookman, and then actually this section of Lad Hill of Brookman off of Lad Hill, this is our jurisdiction until you get to the corner. There's a sliver of the corner, this Clackamas County, and then this is Washington County. Back to Sherwood, back to Washington County. But it's a really weird jurisdictional area for us.
For like 5 years ago, the whole bottom part of Brooklyn wouldn't have been out.
No, a couple of years ago, if I would have made a stop out there, which I have, so county. Yeah.
Was there any sort of agreement with the county when it was developed to do any improvements to that section of the road, like striping, signage, and things like, I see maybe sidewalks and whatnot, but what about like
Nothing.
center line striping, fog lines, et cetera, to sort of delineate things and make it more distinct?
Nothing beyond what you see. I think the fog line and that's a little bit interesting too, was probably pushed through the facilities permit reviews and just not really looked at and evaluated.
The one that looks like a center line,
Yeah.
but it's a fog line, yeah, that's the weird.
The county didn't do anything with that. So, you know, here's the city's project, and then in retrospect, there's maybe some things about that we should. So we are trying to circle back with them and say, hey, you realize these are kind of interesting issues, and do we want to keep pursuing you know, the RTP plan for 20 years and building it now with development, or, you know, maybe address some safety things that beforehand.
I just drove that on the way over here, going eastbound from Middleton. And I noticed as I came around the first sharp left corner, probably about halfway down, there's yellow markers in the center of the street that mark the center of the road. Is that something that we could do through our section of that road?
Well, we don't,
Or is it?
it might not, it actually might cause more confusion because there's like a right of way center line and then there's a paved center line. And the city's portion really isn't city owned, that's just operation and maintenance. So there's three boundaries, there's ownership, operations and maintenance, and then law enforcement jurisdictional boundaries. And so we're just responsible for maintaining and, you know, the hardscape improvements on the top, but this county still owns the underlying land.
So we maintain it as is, but we can't make any engineering changes to the traffic flow or anything.
You know, if the city were wanting to do anything, we'd just submit a facilities permit and but then the city would likely have to fund 100% of that, and that's why we're trying to kind of strum up you know, partnership, I guess, is how I'd refer to it.
So where does it transition from 25 to 35?
Right after the
Back,
90-degree, yeah.
yeah, okay.
Around, it says 25, come up Lad Hill, 25, when they get
I've
around.
been driving this for 20 years, and I think every time I drive it,
I think it's a little
big difference
further than that.
about it.
It's a little further, but it's after this corner, yes, a little further down the road. Those are kind of those loops that you hit, so.
So with the enforcement would be always this lower speed zone in that distance from that control device. With that, like 25, you wouldn't be able to ticket somebody for going 42 and a 35 until they're past that statutory distance, past the.
Yes, past the.
Because how much is left then is my question. That's. And
Then as you go west, it goes to 55.
Yeah, and then that 55 portion too, I'm now,
Opens up to an unposted.
yeah, rural speed.
It's like a
Interesting.
speed zone sign or something.
And I've seen people doing it, nobody needs to be doing 55 on the road, not all.
No, we're talking from the train track to 99, that's the 55.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
By the church there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you're as long as the church parking lot, there's no.
No.
You feel safe even going.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it makes sense with one road that there's one consistent speed limit. It also makes sense that there's one jurisdiction and one whole make, but you know, that's the limitation that we're struggling with. So I think, yeah, Jason, you're on the right track that we need a cooperation partnership with the county. It's their road and we're trying to point out issues and do them favors. So we kind of need them to step up a little and start communicating.
Can we propose then So it sounds like we could do a study though and put together a proposal for the county to consider, and that way we don't have to wait for them to do a study.
Yeah, we could do a couple ways where we could just send them, hey, change the stop sign configuration. You have to do the stop signs more, then they probably have a consultant do that. Or they could come back and say, no, you do that, and then you can change it there. That's just for stop signs. Similarly for the fog line, we could say, hey, please relocate this. They could say no, and then so maybe the city does the kind of analysis, so.
And the speed too.
Yeah, and then that one's a little bit slightly more complicated. I think there's statutory things you can do to avoid having to do a speed study, but the safest way is to do a speed study through the state. And then we're dealing with 2 different zones and a 5th or a 3rd coming off the highway, so I don't know how that merges into like 30 or something, but yeah, those are all things that we could do, and the city can push more, do more of the legwork than we want, but I think we'd start off with just by asking the basic questions of, can you consider doing these basic 3 or 4 things?
What about instead of changing the speed zones, if we just put in a couple extra signs so the boundary is more clear of when it goes from one speed to the next?
That's something that we could do sooner than later too. I think we have to check with Rich, but I think we have an agreement with the county where we can do things like that. And signs, a couple $100. We might even have some sitting around the yard, so that's a possibility.
So
Just to reduce the 55 zone off the highway, so it's visible as you turn.
Well, hopefully make the 25 to 35 more clear, so people aren't continuing at 35 into the new 25 zone and whatnot. It seems that, there's a long stretch between the lot 25 sign and the first 35 one, maybe. I mean, clear them.
I'm a little confused on jurisdiction stuff. I think what I understand is for police enforcement, the jurisdiction's all over the place. That's one thing. So as far as enforcing speed, it's a mishmash. But from an engineering road ownership, it's all Washington County. So stop signs, paint, all the things that we're talking about doing, that's Washington County. It's like on Elwert or Edie where we had issues there. So they didn't really have any jurisdiction to go put stop signs in or change the speed limit. We had to tell the county, let's do this or look into it. But it was kind of like we're just, acting on behalf of citizens, asking for them to look into it. So I feel like we're getting a little bit, maybe a few steps ahead and like looking at like what improvements, I guess that's correct. And my next question is, has there already been discussions with the county that they've been unresponsive or unwilling to do anything, that we need to escalate it? Or do we need to start there by saying, here's these requests from our citizens and from the city, and our police, we all find these are founded. Something needs to be done to Brookman and there's no long-term plans. Please look into this and get back to us.
I don't think you guys need to do anything. I've already gotten those marching orders from the city manager to dig into it. We're in the process of that, and I couldn't say that they're not responsive. I think that we'll get something back that's we can make some movement on.
Okay.
And that it's just, I feel responsible to kind of help do that anyways. We do have the overlapping public streets that are on the approaches with the site distance, so we do have some say in what goes on the street, so.
Yeah, I just want to try and focus where we are as a committee and making sure that we're, providing input within our boundaries, I guess.
I think I come back and say, what headway have you made the county's maintenance folks as far as who's leading any study or what's gonna happen out there? And I don't know at this point, but and these are valid comments that the city wants to respond to, and at least try to do what we can now.
So am I hearing, Jason, you're taking that and we're
Rich and
the
I are.
next step? Okay.
Yeah, we're cool.
Because,
Yeah.
so that everyone has a point of view, anytime a land use application comes in this area that impacts Brookman, that is a county roadway, Washington County's at the table. They tell us exactly what right of way they want in regards to dedication, what kind of improvements that they're gonna be wanting. So they're always at the table in that respect because it's their roadway. Even access points, they have to grant us those access points because it's their roadway. So all the efforts that you're gonna be doing, Jason, Waters, is key in regards to being able to try to resolve the issues that are at the table. But again, outside of law enforcement, it's a mismatch, right? Enhanced sheriff and also the city. But in regards to right of way and roadway jurisdiction, it's definitely Washington County. So there has to be a coordination effort in regards to, we can't just put signs up. Right, Jason, without an approval from the county?
Yeah, well, we have to get, permission for them to change or alter any traffic control device, but if it's just putting up an additional speed limit sign and we have it, we've done that before on, Edie Road. We've
Okay,
done similar.
but you need to still get
Oh, yeah.
blessing from the
The
county.
county engineer needs to know what's going on out there ahead of time.
So next steps for these two? From you?
For you guys to ask me what headway have you made with the county on, are they studying anything, or does the city want to do any additional? Either just straight up bullet point recommendations and go from there, or expend resources, which I have not had the authority to go hire anybody to do consultant studies or anything. It's just city staff at an operations and maintenance level trying to work out some, with their staff.
I feel like this one's not quite ready for a recommendation, kind of more in the data gathering stage of things where we'll just give you some time to work things out with the county and see what comes of it. And then if we have to do something on the city's part, then we'll know that after you have more conversations, I think. And then on the enforcement side, it sounds like there's not a significant speed issue in the area that we have jurisdiction over, but is that something that you would want us to recommend that you guys do more out there, or do you already spend time out there?
We already are, so we would really be changing.
Continue to inform.
Yeah, we just need to continue to do what we're already doing.
And it's one of those things too, where with that new data that we're able to look at, it's one thing like Chris can be able to look at that periodically and we can narrow it down in regards to timeframes, and see if there's a problem starting to develop in our section. So at this point, we don't have a speed issue within our section, but we can monitor that. And if we start to see it flaring, then we can address it. But at this time, it wouldn't even be hitting our radar. There would be other areas in the city that are brighter in regards to where we need to be patrolling for speed.
But what do you say, Greg? Okay with just letting this one ride till the next meeting?
We need more data, yeah. And conversation with the county.
We're gathering data from the urban whatever program, and then we have those pneumatic tubes out.
I'm not sure if we have tubes out for, at least I'm not aware, but.
So we're just doing the GPS.
And then I've been going out there, other officers have been, just physically monitoring speed ourselves.
I'll see if I can find out who the tubes are.
It's probably county. If Jason, you don't know about it, then it's probably county, right?
Yeah, you guys aren't using your tubes.
No.
Yeah.
Could be the developer.
Okay. You good? All right. So on to 25-009, speeding concerns on Washington and Lanky by Sherwood Middle School, concerned about pet safety and requesting speed bumps and speed cameras.
Wasn't it almost entire from when you go around the corner from school to by the LDS church? That's almost all 20 miles per hour.
During school hours, yes, 7 to 5, Monday to Friday. And I can tell you that people don't obey that. In the 15 minutes I sat out there this morning, I had 4 stops, all at least 10 over. Wow. Just nonstop. I mean, thirties. Common, I mean, most people are coming through, at least from my personal observations. Either doing 20 or they're doing 28 or 30. There's really nothing in between from what I see. And then the data from Urban SDK shows average is 26. Now granted, outside of school hours, the posted speed limit's 25. So you just have to dive in deeper on that data to see at what times of the day are those the 2060 average versus, during school hours. So from my perspective, I definitely think speeding is a problem along Meineke.
Is there high speed issues?
Just from my personal enforcement, and then Officer Newman, who's the school resource officer that's assigned at the middle school. 30 to 31-ish has been the average of the violators. So regardless of the time of day, they're still speeding. School's on and on.
It makes you wonder, what possesses someone in a school zone? I mean, when I go through a school zone, that's like I'm walking on glass. I mean, you would want to, extra careful. Why would you?
I mean, I don't want to throw any particular people under the bus, but I can tell you that a large portion of the people that I stop work at the school. They're teachers. Yeah. It's awkward. Those are awkward conversations.
It's wide and there's no, from the traffic light to the traffic circle. It's pretty much open.
Fairly good visibility.
The one thing I will comment on this time of year, if you're coming out of the roundabout there at 7:30-ish. The sun is a factor. The sun is right in your eyes. And so if you got a pedestrian trying to cross there, the crosswalk at Smith in front of the LDS church. Yeah, it probably could be kind of hard to see him because unless you're using a visor, even when I come up there, sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't see a thing right. The speed I've been seeing, I'm not going to limit the sun to being a factor because I'm getting speeders going. Right. So I don't see that as a factor.
Is it on all lanes from the roundabout all the way to?
From the time people come out of the roundabout, so I'll do both speed and I'll do cell phone enforcement there. If I'm doing cell phone, I'll usually sit somewhere in the LDS church parking lot and you can hear the cars if I'm sitting on the school side of the church along the building, you hear them when they come out of the roundabout. Then there they go flying by, back towards Stella Olson Park. Vice versa, people come out of that S curve there by the park, hit the straight stretch, and it's just
Similar to Main Street, I think it's like even me, when I get on Meineke, if I'm not paying attention, I'll hit that first stretch at 30.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in.
So I have noticed that people come out of the curve and they maintain a pretty slow speed until they get to the light at the school. And then whether or not the light's red or green, once they get past the light, I think they just assume, oh, I'm past the school zone. So then they open it back up down that straight stretch as they're heading towards the roundabout. Because that's where I've been getting them. I've been sitting closer to the church and Smith Avenue down there. That's where I've been trying to do a lot of my speed enforcement. And that's where I'm getting the majority of the speeders is as they're passing by the southern entrance to the school and then the ball fields there between the school and the church. That little stretch there is where I'm getting most of the people that are speeding.
Where does the school zone end? At the church? Or
It's like right in front of the church. Yeah. And then on the other side, it's just,
25 miles more than 25, the rest of the way to the roundabout, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's not much difference.
So with that said, our recommendation to the committee is that because this is a new case that came into us, right? So our recommendation is that just as Officer Pierce said, the electronic SDK data is showing that we have a speeding issue there. Actual officer observations there is that we have an issue there. We would like to recommend that you run a motion to keep this one going, and have us do enforcement on it and see if we can change the behavior through enforcement. Would be one recommendation that we would throw out to you to think about as a committee. obviously in this complaint that came in, they do talk about speed cushions and speed cameras, etc. As you guys well know, when I say guys, when you all know that we've talked about this stuff, we would obviously like to see if we can get things back into compliance through some enforcement as opposed to necessarily having to attach other expensive items, onto the street. For starters, but if you could give us the month to kind of report back, that'd be great. That'd be helpful.
Be prudent to reach out through social media and say, hey, if you're speeding down this road, you're gonna get caught. We want to change behavior, right? Would that be a cheap way to look at it, or?
Some people may see the message. I mean, school zone speeding in our city this isn't the only school zone where we have a speeding issue. I work all the school zones and we have an issue at every one of our school zones.
That said too, though, we support that, in regards to messaging outward on our social media platforms in regards to speed in an area that we would specifically see. So if you want to recommend anything in that arena too, we can talk to our PIO and see what we can do about that.
And I know in general that does happen. Beginning of every school year, there's always a outbound message saying, reminder, school's starting, keep your speed down. I think they do it right after Christmas break too.
And as we're coming up on the end of school, graduation and stuff, that might be time for another PSA or something.
We also have the school zone study that the city's completing, inventorying what's there and things that can be done. And I don't know if we'll be able to report back in a month on that, but that project's gonna recommend improvements to this area whether it be adding speed radar feedback signs. I doubt we'll do the speed cushions, but we'll kind of have some recommendations. And I always bring up Tigard High School, how you've seen that road evolve over the years. They've added new things. Now they have tubular markers and pedestrian hybrid beacon. And so I think that's kind of where council wants our school zones to go, is to have kind of a plan to, whether we can afford it or not for every school, to come up with a plan to improve the areas. So I think that's from the city's perspective, within probably 2 months, we will report back on the findings of that study and some recommendations, and probably come up with an adopted kind of action plan for each school.
So Jason, is that the school assessment zone? Okay,
Yeah.
we're focusing on elementary.
Sure, we're not doing junior high then. I'm sorry, I spoke out loud. Well,
That said too, just please keep in mind that from the data that we're seeing is that this isn't a school time zone problem only, correct, Officer Pierce? We have a speed issue outside of that as well there, right?
we can handle that through engineering then, and similar treatments, so. And we'll just go offline and do something similar. Maybe there.
From a police perspective, would you prefer to keep the school zone as a 7 to 5 all the time? Because, there's always the possibility of solar school zone beacons that keep it, it's obviously much more visible when they're flashing there for Sherwood High School. Tigard High has 9 of them. And on all side streets, all over the place, they're everywhere. And it's widely used. Is that a preference for you guys, rather than having a 10-hour enforcement zone to, roughly 45 minutes from now before and during the start of school, midday, and then at the end of school?
My personal opinion for what I do, I don't like the flashing signs, although the time limited speed zones. Because more often than not, I'll be in a school zone and somebody will come through and I'll stop them.
Right.
I'm like, well, I didn't see the light flashing. And if it's around that time where they may or may not be, I'm like, they could be right. Maybe the signs have turned off and I didn't see that they turned off. So now I don't have probable cause for the stop anymore. Whereas if it's 7 to 5, it's very, very easy.
Well, one of the ways we help with that we add tattletales, which are little 2-inch reverse facing ones. So if you're in that zone, you can turn around and look at it and see it. blinking at you.
That's what, to be honest, that's what I need added on Sunset. Because
Okay.
those signs there on Sunset for the Middleton school zone don't have those. So if I'm working speed in between those signs. To be honest, I've found there's a certain spot I can park my car and I can see the sign, the light reflecting off the sign further down the road. That's how I do it. But depending on the time of day, it's kind of hard to see. So,
Right.
like our school zone down here on Edie, those have those little beacons that flash on the backside of the
Right.
sign. So I would like to see those on the Sunset signs too.
You might be upgrading those for the.
Perfect. And I'm sure the upgrades will include those.
Now, the reason I ask, obviously, is if that's something that we might consider as a recommendation, but if it's something that the police don't necessarily want to see in front of the middle school, then perhaps it would be best not to recommend something like
In
that.
my opinion, this school zone is relatively short, so changing it from a flashing around school drop off and pickup time versus just keeping it all day, I'm in favor of keeping it 7 to 5 personally.
That'd be my recommendation too, since I live right near Sunset.
Yes.
You can hear them and I'm 2 blocks off of Sunset. I hear the cars roaring up and down there from Pinehurst to Woodhaven.
I mean, do you guys need a recommendation for more for enforcement and come back and visit, or like, are we okay just letting this one, you guys just do more?
I think Daniel can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think leaving it and letting us continue our enforcement like we've been doing. So we can see if we can, like you say, change driving behavior through our enforcement.
Yes, Jason Chair, I would love to have you guys do at least a kickoff, why do I say nomination? It's not nomination, but a motion, just for us to do enforcement on this and report back. And see if we can get this back into compliance through enforcement. If we can't, and we're seeing that it's just not working, and that's not enough, then I'd love to be able to come back to the next meeting and say, you know what, we're doing enforcement, but it's just really not making the right impact. And then we'll come back with more recommendations, some of the ones that you guys all said in regards to, flashing this, flashing that, additional measures.
Officer, what's the current fine for speeding in the school zone? Does it vary with the
Speed, so we're down to speed brackets, so 1 to 10 over a speed limit, 11 to 20. So a person doing 31, 11 to 20 over in a school zone's $325. If they're doing 1 to 10, it's $225.
Well, I'll make the motion to, have the police continue to monitor and enforce, and then give an update at the next committee meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, next one, 2025-10. Request for stop signs southbound at First Street and Parker Street.
Sorry, my mic cut out on my end. Which one are we on? Are we on 003 or?
Park.
10.
But I had a note that we were gonna put that up. I just don't think we got it up yet, and I didn't circle back with Rich, but that seemed pretty straightforward. To add stop sign there. There's no stop signs anywhere in that intersection. At all. Just be putting a stop sign right where the arrow of the cursor is right now.
Well, the stop sign would be on First Street.
Yeah, facing northeast. That's why it was the orientation of the streets in Old Town skewed. So south may have made you think it was on Park, but yeah, south is.
Yeah,
right there.
Here.
Yeah.
So this is referencing where it heats,
Yeah.
like by that historic building there. there's no stop sign at the T, or either, there's no stop sign.
Yeah, I thought you were-
Okay, yeah, so one stop sign on First makes plenty of sense. You'd think it would be assumed that you stop as you're coming to a T, but I can see how.
Yeah, there's some recommendations on traffic volumes where you want to put a stop sign up or just kind of let it free flow and it's really low volume. But we've got the stop signs around the yard, so it's pretty easy to get this one in.
Or the other parallel roads have the stop signs at that T.
I believe there is one up at Second there. Second Park, if not, zoom in and we'll find out and then add that into the.
This is the.
Up there.
There's not.
Third Park.
Yeah, no, that one's just the left.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, we don't need that though. There's no stop. You put the stop on the private side
There's the
there.
little
Yeah.
dead end down to the quote
There's gonna
unquote
be
stone
there.
steps to the park there. So they're called.
And that second looks like, it's just like an alleyway.
Yeah.
It's, you know, they drive, so it's part. And what about railroad? That doesn't, that's the.
That hasn't for sure. Yeah, yeah.
That's a bend.
Yep.
The other way.
Wait, see there might not be there.
Park and Philip.
There's all.
Yeah, right here,
Yeah, we don't. see that.
it's the railroad.
Let's. Yeah, we're good. Let's tee it that way.
Yeah, and it doesn't really continue past Harvard, really, railroad doesn't, so yeah, it just kind of seems like one's missing in that whole grid and it's on First. So yeah, I would say that would be. The recommendations, we got signs around for one. That already in the works, that is what you're saying, or do we?
Yeah, I know it said it's already in the works and we just didn't circle back, so my guess is it was seemed so straightforward at the last meeting that. We didn't follow up and had to go put in a service request possible. I'll get with Rich, that could be. Pretty easy to get done.
Look for an update next month.
Right, this would be in order, still, so I'll see it.
Just keep it.
I'm just wondering, why would someone blind make a turn left or right?
Yeah.
And.
Or the same, I mean,
Probably easier, there's a stop sign.
If people did what they were supposed to do, I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
You would think so, but.
Pending then, or?
Yeah, until.
Okay. Thank you.
Couple blocks further.
25-11, speeding concern on Third Street, Main Street intersection, requesting stop and yield on Third Street heading east.
So on this one, and I have spoken with the complainant about these as well. We don't have a speed issue on Third. And we've talked about kind of the speeds on Third before. It tends to be more of just a, perception issue that it seems like they're speeding, but they're not. And then the secondary issue was the person was talking about how there's maybe needing a stop sign that would be for cars coming out of that tiny little flag lot there, right where the arrow is right now. So as it stands right now, people that are traveling on Third and going onto Main, they have free flow to do that. And people that are on Main and turning right onto Third, they have free flow. And in essence, the little flag lot there where there's two houses, they don't have any signage either. So I think, Jason, you were looking in to try to determine if that was private property and so we wouldn't be able to do anything, or if it is city owned, then we would be able to put a stop sign there. Was that where we were at?
Yeah, that's where we're at. I don't have any updates on that though. I think all we could do is put a stop sign up
Stop sign on this.
on the private side, yeah, which I don't know is gonna do much. Since it captures, but technically 0 trips.
But obviously, I think like we talked about, right, if it's private property, then they are required to just stop there anyways. So it wouldn't be us putting in a stop sign. So we just have to figure out who owns that curtilage right there.
Looks like
Yeah, I'm almost certain it's public right away.
Well, even if it is, I think that it's the law that you have to stop when entering from an alley or, you know. I mean, I wouldn't consider that a solid stretch of road. I think it's a stop regardless.
But I guess what I'm saying is asking for a stop or yield sign on Third Street facing east.
But yeah, I think they're wanting to have a stop sign for the two residents.
Yes, that's when I spoke with the complainant, that was the discussion we had was, would it be a stop sign there for those two houses on that little flag gravel road?
Yeah, it's easy enough to research and see first off if we're even allowed to, whether, you know, private property or public property. And then regardless, can we just educate the two residents down there, just say, there's been some complaints, just so you know, you have to treat this as a stop, whether it's listed or not, whether it's posted or not, and then monitor it. We would think that would be the easiest course of action.
We don't have any accidents here. We don't have any. Yeah, I have data point.
I know you've sat there and you've watched, you know, for the other stop sign and for speeding and stuff, and it seems that, yeah, there aren't really issues on that road in general. I'm sure you haven't caught people running out of that lot onto the road without looking.
The slot right here.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't seem like there's enough to
I'll be
justify.
completely honest, in the 10 years I've worked here, I don't know that I've ever seen a car come out of there.
Yeah,
So it's, you know, sometimes I'll make a traffic stop and they just happen to stop there. That's the most vehicle traffic I've seen, but.
And you're parked there for enforcement reasons to watch the stop sign and stuff too. So yeah, I'm sure you're aware of how active. I mean, it just doesn't seem like an active intersection. Seems a lot.
I drove that road on the way over here tonight and I went up screen, I guess, to Third and took a right on Third. And the only dangerous opportunity I found was if I was 5 seconds earlier, the cars come down Third and they take that left and they cut across the corner and there's parking places right along that house on the north side of Third Street, which makes that a very narrow road. There's cars parked. In this picture, there's no cars parked in front of that house there, but it could be narrow, especially if it's a big truck or something, but I don't think it warrants a stop sign or anything like that. It's just something you gotta be careful of if you're driving there.
That said, if it isn't private property, and to go to what you were saying in regards to, yeah, stopping when coming out of an alley or out of a driveway, you know, but if it is just private property, then yeah, that's their requirement to stop there. But if it is more than private property, and then I would guess we have a bit of a responsibility to throw something up there, even if we don't have a lot of cars coming out there.
I think it is public right away, and regardless, I don't think it makes sense to put a stop sign there.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't always share the same opinion on stop signs as the rest of the group here, so. I wouldn't recommend putting a stop sign in there personally. It's probably more of a. Maybe people aren't being polite in their driving. But not necessarily gonna cause an accident. It's just like, hey, I had to stop and you just blew right through there. And that doesn't seem right. But it just seems like it's all slow speed, low traffic maneuvers that like. I don't know, you start clearing out parking and adding stop signs, and you're just gonna get non-compliance on stop signs. Cause they're not warranted, and you're gonna get higher speeds because you cleared the space out to make wider area for people to maneuver. And part of the downtown core area is a little bit of tightness, a little bit of, you gotta watch out and pay attention because you don't know what's coming around the next corner, and that makes people slow down. And so that I would kind of just, I guess, my position would be to recommend no action. But I also recognize I don't always share the same. Stop signs.
With that.
This one's more of a Jason one, so like I said, from law enforcement perspective, we don't have an issue with the speed and Jason, whatever you're thinking, Waters, in regards to what you need to do or not do.
I'm liking what Chair Worth is saying, but I want to verify that we have no obligations for the public right of way, but the end of the street, I mean, before, I think I could triple stamp it, I guess. I just want to verify there's no obligations to do a do not enter or a fog line or something that doesn't leave it uncontrolled, but other than that, yeah, I think this one seems right for no action. And I haven't seen there's many cars coming out of there and no data to support speeding through there. So I agree, removing the 2 parking spaces in front of that home would be probably controversial and promote speeding more, so.
Wait on it, the next month or make a recommendation of no action.
I would be fine if we close it, recommending no action, but ask for an update to be delivered at the next meeting. If we're able to do that, as opposed to leaving it pending, can we do that?
That's outside of the way that we've done it traditionally. It would be good to keep it for us in regards to the way we've traditionally done it, which would be if you want actions done by us, we leave it open case until you get the info.
Get an update. We're waiting to get an update as long as they're handling things.
I don't feel the need for one.
Yeah, so we just close it then? All right, yeah, I'll move that we close it with no action.
A second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. On pending traffic safety request, we have 25-003, request for street improvements on Mains Division intersection. My flashing lights crossed out, stop, speed indicator signs.
We have a request in the PG to upgrade the luminaire inside the overhead that's there at the Division and Main Street intersection to increase the lumens just enough to get it over the standard. It's close. Once we do that, that's pretty much all we can do within our toolbox. Requests for stop signs or, flashing beacons, push button flashing beacons or the speed radar feedback signs. We're gonna need to come up with some sort of selection method for that because we keep getting requests for the speed radar, the feedback signs all over town, and we don't have really a system for installing those. Same with push buttons or a pedestrian hybrid beacons. Anything else on here besides the lighting is kind of above and beyond, but that's the plan, is to get the lighting in compliance and then we'll be done with this case file.
That's good news. Any questions? On to 25-005, request for parking on one side of the street at Cornerstone between Baker and Stonehaven.
Yeah, this one, we're just waiting to get some data back from our speed and traffic volume radar devices. And we don't have that collected. We do have some information from Dewey that we collected again, but between now and the next TSC meeting, we'll have data to share. But with you guys had already kind of made a motion to close this one out. We're just waiting for the data. So some data points, show the speed limit, average speed and things like that. So I can present that at the next meeting and then we can officially put this one out.
So motion to keep this pending until next month. For an update.
So this one was we were doing I'd asked them to do a petition for No parking?
That's the options that they have, if they want to.
So they want to ask.
So if they want to do anything after you guys say no action, they can do that no parking petition and.
I don't want to take away parking in this one unless they really wanted it, so they had to ask all the neighbors.
That's right, yeah.
So the last that we did was we made a motion to close it unless someone wanted to file a petition. So have they been, has that been communicated to them?
Unless the PD reached out to them, but I don't think they have. You can get them their data from the radar stuff and mention that to them and give you an update. At the next meeting. I don't think you guys should keep this going if they're gonna do a petition. I think that you guys have closed it out, no action from your end, and then their option would be to get their neighbors to sign a petition and say they're okay with removing the 2 or 3 stop signs, no parking signs on one side. And it would then be reviewed by the city manager.
What were we looking into regarding speed?
But if there was data from the speed feedback signs coming off or turning off their cars that were speeding, coming off of their. Posted speeds 25, but we didn't have any average speeds coming off of Murdoch or Baker turning onto this road. So that was the idea, is to get some data to back up the decision not to do anything.
The urban SDK shows average 13 miles an hour, high of 21.
That's a sharp turn. I would have assumed there'd be the ability to speed.
The highest,
It's a good for
I
volume.
thought it was the congestion this year, there wasn't enough space to maneuver or something like that.
Yeah, the same problems with
Concerned
it.
about the narrowness of the street and make it no parking one side. When big trucks were parked on either side or something.
So
Using speed as a justification for no parking.
So if we close it and they petition it, you don't need our involvement to do anything about it?
As far as I know, you guys have already weighed on no being your recommendation.
So, but if they all petition to have it removed. Then you would remove it, which is not what we recommended. That's
That would
okay.
be a city manager, city council decision, but they may agree with you. I don't see any reason to remove it would have to be the neighbors want it gone, and I don't think that they have that support. So,
So,
reach out to the person and
so
let
with
them
the
know.
petition, the property owners that are gonna get impacted actually have to sign off on that versus just the neighbors that want those parking spaces to be removed. So as the person that lives in one of those homes, I don't know if I would want my parking space that could be for
Yes,
guests
yeah.
or my second car or third car. But anyway, but that's an avenue, that's a different avenue from this committee that they can pursue if those property owners sign it. That they want to remove their parking spaces in front of their house.
The petition
Right.
petition process is a formalized process the city has developed or put in place for people to deal with traffic control devices.
Yeah, there's a previous process we had. I've never used it. I don't know if it's the best process, but it is. Yeah, there is one where you can go around and collect. If you just read the code, you printed these things up, you'd go to your neighbors, collect these signatures, then present it to the city and probably get denied. So it's like, I don't think that it's a process that folks want to go through. And that's kind of I'll reach out to them and let them know they can, but in the past, I had a whole lot of them approved. And I feel like it's, asking folks to step through hoops that they don't need to.
I thought, I didn't realize that was a formal process. I thought we were looking to gain insight on the neighbors so that we could make a decision. It was different than what we thought.
We were amazed, the decision, the motion says that we closed it with the recommendation to leave the street as is. Unless the petition is filed. So if they come with a petition, then it kind of comes back to life, but otherwise we've already decided to close it.
I guess the whole petition thing's news to me, and I feel like it might be worthwhile in a future meeting to get more about that. Because that maybe a tool that residents can use for things if they don't like our decision.
Yeah, I don't want it sitting out there as a tool that is not useful to use either,
Yeah,
you know, that's.
or if we don't want to use it, because he doesn't want to use it, you know, get rid of it.
So Jason, are you gonna bring that process forward to inform this committee?
I'll dig into it. I've never gone through the process. I know that Angie and Bob had worked on it a few years ago, so we have some examples of what we've told people, but I don't think anyone ever was successful on. And I don't think we want folks collecting signatures for something that may never get done, I think is what I'm not wanting folks to do. So yes, the answer is yes.
Seems disingenuous.
I think you guys made a decision last time. It's not to do anything, just like Woodhaven, and the same exact issue as Woodhaven is 27.5 feet and not enough to remove parking. You guys have decided on that area. And how is this any different? I think was your point, Jason.
I feel like it, yeah, I think it stays on the list until we know that they're not going to submit anything. That's where I know. I'm also, you guys don't think this is just close it out and get it off the list. The last time I felt we had one person requesting it and we didn't think it was founded, so we denied it or said no to it. And then if everybody on the whole street was like, we all want it, then I feel like we just didn't have enough information. So giving them that opportunity to add more context.
Just leave it on and we can use that to close out the petition process discussion of here's what that process is and.
We can do that.
So.
Yeah, we last left this one where it was that, Jason, I think you were going to go out and talk to the complainant and those neighbors in regards to if they wanted to or not. And then based on what they had told you, then we were gonna either close it or not.
I was waiting to provide them with data to support that, but I'm just gonna go with our urban STK since there's not an obvious traffic speeding issue and volume, and just proceed with getting in touch with them on that.
So it's working now, and maybe the one neighbor, the complainant, maybe has to join the real world. That gonna have parking on both sides of the street, on a wide street.
Okay, you guys okay with just leaving it on the list?
Yeah, let's leave it for hopefully one more update and that's it.
All right, on to the GIS map.
All right, technology here, did you get the link? Because I noticed our data that we don't have our new case files on here. But what this is we've got a new GIS analyst and she's helped us out load our case files into our GIS applets that we're gonna start using to kind of MC or coordinate the meeting. So when we come up with a new case file, we can click on the dot, show where it's at spatially. We're planning on attaching those speed reports to the data points too, so we can track it that way. So what we're gonna start doing is at the meetings moving forward next month, because the data, and I realized we didn't have some of the case files for the new ones on here. To match up, so we'll get those uploaded here and do a little bit more debugging, but we'll have this up at the start of the meeting and then we can just click on each case file and kind of get an update there. And then so you can see, new case files here pending and review. Down at the bottom, if you want to hit the right left arrow, the new requests show up and then you can click that right arrow. Okay, there you go. There's categories we set up. There's new requests, pending requests, closed requests. So we'll never lose track of even these ones we're closing out for the no parking over there off Baker Road. Will always be a data point here. You can query by date. We're gonna be able to enter case files through here, so you'll have options. It'll be a little bit easier for staff to enter these and track them. And yeah, it's kind of the idea is that we'll use this as kind of our meeting spatial manager. So we're not just talking about a list of projects and you might not know where they are, we'll be able to hone in on a dot, discuss the matter and then move over to the next item. And then if you have questions about an old matter that we thought was resolved, we can pull it up. And we can show you pending items that maybe haven't been reviewed, but you know, we have 4 more items that we need to check emails on and then discuss next month. So
Jason, who can view this dashboard?
right now it's our GIS staff, myself, some folks in engineering, but internal staff right now. It can be modified and changed and evolved to where you could even enter information online. But that's way down the road. That's just right now we're using it as an internal tool to kind of help manage the data and the records and information and present it.
It'd be interesting to see where, I mean, speeding tickets are issued, you know, where the.
Yeah, I bet we can overlay it with other information that's available out there and we'll be able to do show you how many case files were more than a year old. We'll be able to do queries down here with these with the pie charts and things like that. And we're working on changing the colors out, but over the next few months, we're going to debug this and have it kind of be our go-to tool for managing the traffic safety committee. And then you can reset that bottom button there. We'll reset everything and turn everything back on. And we can probably set it up to where it opens up and it just shows basically our agenda item with all the dots there. So that's all I kind of have here is that I think we can take this item off our agenda finally and just use this as our new tool to kind of run the meetings. That's my idea.
Cool.
So, and then we can also discuss attributes. I know Lisa had mentioned I'm wanting to show the road classifications and the speeds, things like that, that would help. And again, we'll have the speed reports linked to it and I'm sure we can do a forward facing aspect of it that the public can see that maybe it's just read only, but I'll link back with Sierra, kind of our options as we grow over time. But I was super impressed. I think this is a much better version of what we presented to you guys a little over a year ago. We just had a bunch of points and no real visual, you know, companion to it. So
So how about this application?
this is just our ArcGIS. We already have this. They're referring to a traffic counting software that we're using and probably gonna make permanent. We'll probably go out for proposals to have, you know, the cell phone data help us as well.
It would be good, I feel that if we were to be able to receive like a read-only link, you know, before each meeting, so we can kind of look at what's pending via this as well. That'd be helpful, I feel, for us. And I say read-only because I don't want to be responsible for messing anything up.
Second that.
I would say the Outlook's good for that, for the committee members to be able to get access to this. That's all I had on that.
Very comfortable.
Great.
Okay, on to committee or staff comments.
I have one question for Jason probably. The new Chick-fil-A that's coming, historically those come with big traffic backups and this is a drive-through only situation. I assume some sort of traffic impact analysis was done. Do you have any insight of what their plan is? Is it just gonna kind of weave through the parking lot?
They do have a lot of drive-through length in there in their site plan. Keelson did their traffic study. We worked on having them do certain mitigation measures. I think I proposed stuff was a little bit more than we ended up doing, but we have them doing an all-way stop there, right at the Taco Bell, Papa Murphy's location. I had requested some, you know, concrete median restrictions, and that was a little bit more excessive than we wanted to get done. And then we're gonna have, they paid into a new signal controller for the McDonald's signal. So I'm gonna work with the county to hopefully get that thing swapped out, so we're at least having the 99W signal and the McDonald's signal kind of turn on at the same time, so cars are coming off the highway and spitting folks through there. Cause I think the controller from the McDonald's one's the original one that was installed.
It's very
in
old.
the 90s or something, so
It's very old.
it doesn't do anything.
In the afternoon,
Yeah.
it's just quicker to go down 12, get back on 99 and get up to the intersection.
And I have a whole slew of other things default with ODOT on. potentially shifting some of the sequencing as far as getting through there, but it's, I did the most that we could with the Chick-fil-A. I'm sure it'll be grand opening, it's gonna be pretty busy and then it should die down, but it's a ton of storage length inside the parking lot there, so.
Yeah, just because I know like Dutch Bros seems to always have a line. It doesn't
Yeah.
even spill out onto the roadway, but there's always a line. Taco Bell, you got 5 cars there and now they're out of their drive-through lane.
That one's gonna be hard, the Taco Bell, leaving the Taco Bell. Because there'll be a queue of cars that come off the Langer Drive onto the site that it'll kind of. Have to take a right and go through all the entire
So
site.
it's the drive-through, it's gonna kind of loop through the parking lot.
Like
Have you ever been by the Chick-fil-A over in Clackamas by the town center?
Yeah,
I live over in Clackamas County and I go shopping in that area, Target, etc. It's a nightmare. The Chick-fil-A, the drive-through is backed up all the way down the main road. And then back down all the way to Sunnyside Road at any given time of the day. So if you're trying to get to Target, and you don't know one of the back access roads to get into it. You're not gonna get to it because the parking lot or the main roadway is backed up with drive-through traffic.
And it's been open for over 5 years.
It's just so popular that it's. Have you guys been on and seen it over there? Yeah, it's a mess.
I will say there is also a Chick-fil-A in Tannisbourne, 185th and Tannisbourne, right by Highway 26.
Yeah.
That one gets busy, but it doesn't back up usually quite that far. I have signals right there and so I see it all the time, even during lunch. And granted, there's a lot more capacity there. It's on a little side access and there's a ton more capacity, but I rarely see it get to the main road. It's usually in its own parking lot. So
Lane drive or drive-through, don't they?
Drive-throughs, yeah.
they're a pretty good sized drive-through. Yeah, it's really,
Yes.
I think he's right. I think it's gonna be crazy for the first month or two, and then it should hopefully settle down, but it's always gonna be busy for years there.
It's just such a popular restaurant, you know?
yeah, I'm definitely interested in how it turns out because I mean, we approved
Yeah.
the plan and we have a covenant with the owner in Chick-fil-A that if it doesn't work the way we plan, that we can go back and. You know, change things out and
Yeah.
maybe put in the meeting, but.
School time, because we got our high school, got Mountainside, we're gonna have Newburgh folks wanting to get Chick-fil-A.
You're right, with the peak hour, there's gonna be somewhere in Clackamas. It's gonna be, because it's already near the woodlot.
Yeah.
For a few hours.
I must be living under a rock because where will the Chick-fil-A be?
Sherry's.
Sherry's is.
Took the Sherry's, tore that down and then the business building there too. So just the Chick-fil-A drive-through only's gone there in place of those 2 buildings.
We'll get another vice.
Hey, right?
Yes, I actually have 2 updates. So, the TSP update is moving forward. Everyone that applied, we're actually moving them forward, which is excellent. So we're establishing and appointing the members on the May 6th city council. So then their next city council, there's a consent agenda that, we will have Lisa and Jason, but Jason representing this, traffic safety, on the board. So thank you for applying. That's pretty awesome. Just to put it on your calendars, so May 6th, we'll find out, they'll establish the CAC, the Citizen Advisory Committee and the Technical Advisory Committee. The first meeting officially is going to be May 21st. And that's pretty much introduction. So, but I'll send out a save the date once you guys have been appointed and then send the meeting request. It'll be in person with a hybrid option. So, but it'll be at City Hall at the community room. So we're trying to make it as flexible as possible. But the consultant will lead that. So we're really excited for that to move forward. The other news that I have is the Safe Routes to School program. Like I informed you guys earlier last year when we were trying to, when you guys provided a grant for the Middleton Timbrel Sunset Crossing and we didn't get that grant, but I do want to let you know that the action plan for that elementary school has been finished And we looked at all of the 6 elements of safe routes to school. So that's complete. And one of the element that we are moving forward with is encouragement. So on May 7th is the National Bike and Roll School Day. So we're gonna be doing that, with Middleton, before school starts, and we'll be, anyone that's participating will be, getting some type of goodies for participating. Yep, it's the National Bike and Roll to School Day. The other thing that we are doing that Jason alluded to was the school zone crossing assessment. City Council has found that they really want some analysis and the importance of what's really happening in our elementary school as far as traffic, the school zone assessment. So we're doing the remaining schools, Ridges, Hawksview and Archer Glen, because we already did Middleton as far as that thorough engineering aspect of it. So the Kittleson and Associates has also been granted that work, and so they're gonna kickstart it, and hopefully they indicated that it's gonna be just a couple of months, so before the new school year starts, we should have an evaluation of the improvements that would be needed to get them to a point where it's more pedestrian safety can be viewed and what improvements would be needed to get to that level. So yeah, lots of things happening, and just really looking forward to moving forward. Questions?
Will there be a similar like deliverable or outcome for like action plan for those other 3 elementary schools then, or is it a different analysis?
It's gonna be a different, because the Middleton Safe Routes School looked at all of the 6 elements of, encouragement, education, enforcement, evaluation, equity. And, did I say enforcement already? Encouragement.
I think it was just 6.
Well, but they're gonna be more looking at the engineering.
Okay.
What's actually like, we're gonna do a walk audit on all of those and then identify the concerns that have been raised through this committee. And through council, because there's been lots of concerns in regards to especially Archer Glen. And evaluating crosswalks, that aspect. So it's more engineering. So we're not doing the whole gamut of the 6 E's, and we're not gonna have a final product as action plan for each school, but we're gonna have improvements needed for each of those schools, reviewed by an engineering firm. So, yeah, it's really exciting so that we can move the Safe Routes to School program ahead. Other questions? Excellent.
Yeah, it's great.
Anybody else, anything else on the agenda? All right, we'll close it out. Adjourned.
Still do that stuff.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank
you. Yeah.
Figure out.